Welcome to Chapter 10, Part 1. This is the last chapter that will have movies, and I think you're going to find in this one in particular, it's going to give you a good idea of how to use a timer in a game. So pay attention carefully to the methods and the functions that are used. So just to review the Properties tab, sorry. As you know, a class defines properties for its own kind of object. And whenever we create or instantiate an object, it receives its own set of properties. This is not news. But what might be news is how we talk about properties a little bit, is that each property stores information about the object. And you've played with this a little bit, the vehicle and the is showing. And you know that it's down here under the Properties tab. See, there it is. Okay, but this is a new phrasing. The set of information about an object is called the state of the object. You've possibly heard of the State of the Union address that the president gives. It lets the country know what kind of state the country is in. And this is sort of the same idea, a little bit less public, is that we talk about the state of the object, and when we're doing that, we're talking about the properties. So what we haven't looked at a lot, but we're going to start to look at is what happens if you change those properties. So it's referred to as a state change. And for example, we could use set to change the color, right? We've done that a little bit too. So these are variables that can be added to the properties list of an object, and that's what's a little bit different today. So we say that the new variable is object level. We say that it is mutable, that's another word for changeable. And what this does is it enables an object to track the state changes, and we can watch that. And that can be really useful. Okay, so for example, we're going to talk about a timer. We're going to construct a timer, and we're going to use a 3D text object so that whatever the time is can be communicated to the user, and that's really the most important thing. So the first thing you're going to do is add a 3D text object to the world and call it a timer, and you could use any digits. They're just using 0.0, and that's really just for the start. So if we're going to do it under the object called timer, then we're going to select that object and do the new variable, and let's call the new variable time left. And it's going to be a number type, and the value 0 because the game hasn't yet begun. Okay, so that should be something. I know the bottom's probably cut off for you, but that's the idea behind it. Oh yeah, okay, you know how to do this part. This should not be totally news to you all. Okay, how do you start the timer? Well, we're going to use this variable called time left, and we've got to initialize it to the amount of time allowed for playing the game. So we're going to do it for seconds, but you could do it for minutes as well. I would probably recommend for your games that they don't last too long, because you want lots of people to be able to play them. Just something to think about. Okay, so here's our storyboard for initializing the time left variable. We're going to have a parameter called amount of time, and this variable is going to be set to a value specified by the amount of time. So that number is going to be shipped in, and that enables you to change it accordingly. So here's the deal. The timer is going to count down to 0, and we need a method for countdown. What do you think it would look like? Pause just give me 15 seconds of thought. What do you think it would look like? Okay, welcome back. Here's the deal. What you're going to do is we're going to be decreasing the time left by 1, and we're going to be updating the text to show the remaining number of seconds. And that's important because the text is usually something that is set. It's not usually something that changes, right? You all have written a little bit of 3D text, you type in and you think it's done. Now what we're going to be doing is changing it, and we've got to constantly have it updated every time we change the time. And at the very end, we're going to update the 3D text to display 0 seconds. So we've got a little while loop, and we've got some do and order loops, and that's the whole method. Really important is that this while loop is running while it's greater than 0. As soon as it gets out of the while loop, at that point, time left is equal to 0, and that's when one more time you're going to update the text to display 0 seconds. So let me show you how this looks. It's a little bit involved, and we'll come back to this slide. Okay, first let me play it for you. It's kind of a cute little program. You can see a spinning chicken, and every time he spins around once, you'll notice that it's counting down. And then it stops. Okay, so let's really peel this apart and take a look at how they did this. So world my first method, we're initializing the timer, we're setting it to 10. You could change that, right? For example, if I changed it to, I don't know, let's make it 12. Watch what happens. Okay, so this is where it gets changed, and if I hit play, it's going to go up to 12. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, world play game. Well, this part's not very exciting. This is just the chicken is turning, but you'll notice that the chicken is only turning as long as the timer and its variable is going to be greater than 0. As soon as it ends, the game ends. Okay? So that's really important. This variable, let's take a look at this variable right here. So I'm under timer, and I'm looking at it, and this is a variable that got created. Okay? So as long as that number is greater than 0, then it's going to turn around. Okay, fine. The timer countdown is the most interesting part, I think. And you saw the storyboard for it, but I really want you to be clear on how to do it. So while the variable, the one we're talking about right here, is greater than 0, then you set its text to what it is as a string. You wait a second, and then here's the tricky part here. This is, well, not tricky, this is the most useful part. Decrement timer.timeleft by 1. And then you're going to set the text. Okay, so to get decrement, you go you go into timer properties, and you drag the variable, and let's just drag it right below it. So it doesn't look like you're dragging it into anything, but then all of a sudden it's going to give you that option to decrement. Okay, that's not obvious. So again, you drag the variable in, you just bring it in all by itself, you're not putting it into any little block, and that's going to decrement it by 1. Okay, let's get rid of that. The other thing about setting text, because this is another line that's really important. Okay, so again, we're in properties, and see the text right here? Okay, this comes with the timer. So here's the text right here. You're going to drag it in. Okay, we're just going to put it right there. And look at that. The timer set text to default string, and then we go up to timer time left, which is again the variable that you created. Oh dear, and hopefully you're going to pull it in there. Okay, sorry, I remembered what it is you have to do. So you do, I showed you how to do timer set text to default string. Now we're going to put something in for the string. You're going to go to world functions, all right, world functions, not the timer functions, but world functions, and then there's this little phrase right here, what is a string? And you're going to put that into here, and then you're going to go up to timer. Oops, sorry. I just did this, I swear. Okay, one more time. Let me show you how to do this. Sorry about that. All right, you start out with the timer. You start out with a property. You go to text. You drag that in. All right, you just hit default string. Then you're going to go to world, and you're going to go to functions, and you're going to go to what is a string, and then you go to timer, and you go to time left. Oh, come on. Oh, there it is. Okay, so there it is. Here's the deal. What this is doing is and this is really important because you're trying to communicate this to the world, that whatever this variable is, this is how you communicate it. If you didn't have that, let me just disable all of those references. Come on. If you didn't have that, it would never change. All right, so this is where it is really important to do it. And you're communicating that twice. You're doing it right here while it's doing the countdown. If you don't have this last one, watch what happens. It's never going to reach 0. See that? It didn't do that last part. So this is part of the while loop. You started out at 10, and it goes down, goes down, goes down, and then this very last one is when you set it to 0. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. Let's look back and make sure that we hit all of the important. Okay, so the most important parts here were first one, the value in a variable was used to deal with a conditional loop. So if you went back and looked, the statement while timer.timeleft is greater than 0, that's what was controlled. And that it was changing, so I showed you how to do the decrement. And then lastly, that we displayed a number as a text string and we kept checking on it and kept just letting it. All right, hopefully that's useful. I think it will be as far as your timer, and I think that's going to be a really important part of your game, or it could be. So go back and play with this. I will make this code available to you so you can play with it as well. Have a good rest of your day.